Hello, fellow seekers. I hope everyone is doing well. This is a little different than what I normally do. Do not worry, there will still be more Darrell or Daryl coming, more Hannah Payne, and any other cases that I've been working on. But this one has really, stumped me to where I'm just going to tell you all you need to go watch it if you haven't watched it yet. It's the Apple River stabbing case that took place in Wisconsin. And I did not even know anything about it until just this week or the end of last week because the trial began. So maybe you all have been watching it, but I got into it and oh my goodness, I am so confused. I can tell you, I don't know what to think. It is so confusing. But I'm going to try to do my best to give you a summary, if that's even possible. So this man here, Nicolae Miu, he's 54 now. At the time, he was around, I think, 52. He is currently charged with first-degree intentional homicide and multiple counts of attempted first-degree homicide that could send him to prison for the rest of his life. So he's accused of unaliving a 17-year-old Isaac Schuman and wounding 4 others. Their names are Dante Carlson, Tony Carlson, Ryhley Mattison, and A.J. Martin. There are a lot of people to keep up with, so just hang in there with me. So this is Nicolae Miu right here in these photographs. Just keep that in mind. Okay, so we're going to jump back. Okay, so here is Isaac's group. Isaac Schuman, who was 17 at the time, was unalived by Nicolae Miu. This is what they're calling Isaac's group. I think they were all, from what I understand, about 17. I think this was the summer right before they started their senior year. This took place on July 30th, 2022. And so here's his group of friends here. There's Isaac and Landon, Ryan, Owen, Juwan. And I believe Juwan is the one who was filming all of this because he recorded it. So they're his friends. So that's Isaac's group, okay? And now we're going to go to another group that became involved, the Carlson Group. Okay, this is the Carlson Group, whom they consider the young adults that came to the aid of Isaac's group, who were 17. Now, apparently, the dad here, I think he said they had a bar or something, and he told his 2 sons, I don't know why they don't have them all labeled, but one of them is Dante, that fellow there, and the other one is Dante. Tony is one of the others. They're his sons, and I think he wasn't in great health, so he told his sons to go see if they could help. Maybe that was not a great idea, but so they did that, and I guess, so this one of their friends, Rylee, and one of them is, I think her name was Brandy. I think it was this one. And then AJ was a friend, came to help because they assumed that Nicolae, the man who's accused of doing what he did, they thought that the teens needed help. So they got involved. And now I'm going to show you Nicolae's group. So this is Nicolae Miu's group. There's Nicolae, his wife, Sandy. I think they're now divorced. Ernesto. I know some of these guys went to help, but that's his group. So most of them are probably around 50 years old. So you got all these different ages. Everyone's obviously drinking. Now, the thing is that the Carlsons, the one with the young adults, and then Isaac's group, who were, most of them were 17, I think everyone was drinking, but the others were drinking heavily, the young ones. I think that's part of the argument. Alcohol doesn't mix, let's face it. And so I know Isaac's group and I believe Carlson's group were drinking a lot of beer and smoking the cheerful incense, that stuff. So, they were not feeling a lot of pain. And so it's alleged that Nicholas had goggles and a snorkel, and he also had a knife in his pocket, in his right pocket. Okay, so they are tubing. I forgot to tell you that. They are tubing down the Apple River. In Florida, tubing is very popular. So, and probably most people, y'all know what we're doing, but I mean, what people are doing, you just go, you literally take a big inner tube and sit in it, and you float down the river. You usually start at one place and you end up at another one at the end. And a lot of times there's places where you can stop and eat or whatever, or just keep floating. And so it's supposed to be a very fun, relaxing trip. Apparently this was not. I guess when alcohol's involved, it's never good. So apparently, they were doing the tubing, and one of Nicolae's phones, not one of his phones, one of his friends had lost their cell phone. So he volunteered to go look for the cell phone because he had his goggles and his snorkel, and the friend was going, no, don't worry about it, it's okay. But he goes, no, I want to do it, because he's like the nice person that his friends said that he is. So he goes to look for the phone. And so the thing is, like I said, one of Isaac's friends filmed almost the whole thing, but what he didn't get is no one is ever going to know who spoke first. The kids are going to say Nicolae spoke first. He's going to say they spoke first, but none of us know, because a lot of the story is very sketchy. So apparently I could hear it on the camera. One of the ones said, now the teens alleged that Nicolae, they asked him what he was looking for, and he said he was looking for little girls. But I'm not sure that he said that, because that just came out of one of the kids' mouths, and I have a feeling, or the teens, almost old enough for adults. So it gets very, like I said, it gets very confusing. That's why I say watch the trial, because it is very interesting. It's horrible. But so of course, then the Carlson Group hears something about, looking for little girls. And then I think one of them calls him a pedo and raper and all of these things. Now, we don't know. None of us know what's the truth. It could have been somebody asked him what he was looking for, and he was just trying to be sarcastic and said, little girls, which probably wasn't be a good thing, because so they're saying they feel creeped out because they call him an old man. I'm, older, and I'm like thinking, well, 52 and that old. I mean, it depends on where you're sitting, But anyhow, to a teenager, everybody's old, I guess. So they just thought he looked creepy, but then according to him, he was just looking for the phone, and he said he saw someone hold up a phone, and he did approach them first. So he approaches them thinking that maybe it's his friend's phone, and then, I'm not going to lie, these kids are jerks. They're drunk, they're yelling, they're basically bullies. They're jeering at him. So it's like 15 people against one, that's why it gets confusing. Now, what it's thought is he's the one who touched somebody first. But, so he's coming over there at a pretty good clip, it looks like there, but he's thinking that they have maybe his friend's phone. Okay, I think I called one of the girls from the Carlson Group Brandy, but it's actually Madison. This is when the first altercation occurred. So young woman Ryhley came over and started talking to Isaac, because I believe that the teens were yelling, that those names that they called him. And so she's over there telling him to go. I'm thinking probably, this is just me looking from the outside in, it probably wasn't a good idea for her to come and get involved. Maybe, I don't know. But I guess she just kept yelling at him. And then, okay, so that is the one who I said was hollering at him. And then Ryhley is right there upon him. Now, if you look right there, nobody can see it at the time, but there is well, maybe you can't see it. Let me lower this just a little bit. You can see, I'm sorry if this is shabbily done. I'm just trying to get this done. It's not going to be pretty, but hopefully it'll pique your interest enough so you can kind of see the weapon right there. And everybody keeps saying he looks creepy. I mean, yes, I can look at him and say he looks creepy, but then you got all these people, they're in his face, and then it just gets confusing, because then it's said that he smacks this one in the face, Madison, and her glasses come off. But then when the witnesses get on the stand, the teens, everybody's story is conflicting. Nobody knows if they really ever saw anything, and I don't even know if she's testified. I don't think she had any marks on her face, but anyhow, so then it gets everybody riled up. So somebody says, oh, you shouldn't hit a woman. And then so it gets all the guys fueled up. And I'm saying there's too much noise, too much drunkenness, too much mouthiness. Like I said, all these people acted like asses. They really did. Now, I think some of the people that ended up being injured did have good intent. I'm just guessing by looking at them. But so it ends up he retaliates, and the Isaac, I think they show, or maybe he has his hands around his neck, or he's pushing him. I don't know. He's been pushed, maybe in the water, and so he just pretty much disembowels Isaac, and that's it. And then of course now people are freaking out, and then this one gets injured, and then there's an AJ from the Carlson Group that's amazing. I mean, I'll show you. I'm just going to show you. Okay, this is AJ Barton. He's part of the Carlson Group. And the reason why I show him is this young man I don't know how he is alive, because he got, as you'll hear and see, he was literally holding his insides in his hands. And he might have been just as guilty as the others, but I don't think he is. But let's just listen to a little bit of his testimony. Okay, this is some of AJ's direct exam.
AJ. Yeah. And AJ, were you tubing with friends on July 30th, 2022 on the Apple River?
Yes, I was.
And are you friends with Tony?
Yeah, we were roommates in college. And then that was the first time we'd seen each other in like 3 years.
Okay. And what college?
River Falls, Wisconsin.
What city and state do you live in now?
St. Paul, Minnesota.
AJ, do you have any prior criminal convictions?
Yes, 2.
And what do you do for work?
I'm a electrical apprentice. I install solar panels.
And how tall are you?
5'9" and 3/4.
And how much do you weigh?
160 now.
And how much on, if you know about, on July 30, 2022?
170.
What do you, at some point when you're tubing on the river, did something catch your attention or people's attention that you were with?
Yeah.
What do you recall about that?
Just a lot of loud noises, screaming, yelling, someone asking for help, and then I had seen Maddie get up with someone, and what I remember was getting up, and I think I had got Dante up with me, but then I turned around to also get Tony up, and Dante was over there. I turned back around from trying to get Tony up, and I believe I saw Maddie get pulled in the back of her hair and then punched in the face. It could also be that she just got punched in the face, and I had seen like the after, like her face get flung, and that's why I thought her head got pulled. And then,
so, do you recall like how far away you were when you saw what happened to Maddie?
I was probably about halfway in between the groups. Or maybe a little closer to, we're group 2, right? So I would be a little closer to group 1, the teens group.
Still on your way over?
Yeah.
And after that, did you hurry over?
I mean, yeah, I was, after I saw him punch her, I wanted to get over there, but I tried to get over there as fast as I could, I guess.
And what do you recall after that?
Well, after he had hit Maddie in the face, I saw someone else hit him, and I wasn't sure who. I saw him fall into the water, and my intention was, because I used to work at elementary schools and had experience breaking up fights with little kids and stuff like that, so my intention was to go over there and try and break it up. I saw him in the water, and I saw people going around him, so I went to push his shoulder in the front, but ultimately didn't. But I was going to try and just get him to stay down for another second and then tell everyone to back up, and then we could have figured out what was going on. But as I reached down to push him in the shoulders, he reached up and I guess, I don't know if you call it a stab, but got me with the knife.
What was your injury?
Well, there was a lot, I guess. The most apparent thing, obviously, was that my stomach was open and my intestines were in my hands. I don't know what other parts were there, but, I mean, they were in my hands, and, I know that from there, but afterwards with, like, the medical records and stuff, I know other injuries. I don't know if you want me to go into that or not.
Did you, after you're holding your intestines, did you see much of anything after that?
Not much. I mean, after that, I remember screaming pretty viscerally, I think is the word. And then I remember kind of scooping it together with my left arm and putting my right arm down and standing up, and then falling down and standing up again. And I think I fell down and stood up one more time. And then I was I was still conscious. I was talking. But after that, really, all I remember is that, and then telling Tony that I was going to die, and him telling me I was going to be fine, and that I wasn't. And my response every time was, like 100%, I'm going to die today. And then I remember waking up in the hospital with a breathing tube and my parents looking at me.
And do you know how long you're in the hospital for that first time?
Yeah, 27 days.
And when you woke up the first time, was that after surgery?
Yeah, it was around 11:30 that night, I believe.
Did you have follow-up surgeries?
A few, yeah.
Was your wound stitched closed right away?
No. They put what they call a wound vac on it. I assume that acts as kind of like a fake flesh or skin. And they left that on for about a week, doing other exploratory surgeries just to make sure that they didn't miss any other lacerations or injuries. And then after almost a week or so, they had done internal stitches but left the top open so that it would heal better, and they put another smaller wound vac over that.
Did you have to have any sort of devices to assist with digestion, eating, feeding?
Yeah, I had a few feeding tubes, some NG tubes to help with just the extra fluids in my stomach. But yeah, I had the feeding tube because after the surgeries I had developed a hematoma in my intestine, and it was completely blocked off. There was no food, no water, and the IV nutrition wasn't doing enough. I had lost 50 pounds in that 27-day stint.
Hey, AJ, were you drinking on the river that day?
Yes.
Do you believe you're intoxicated?
Probably, yeah.
Do you recall how you got to shore?
No, not really. I didn't know that I did, really. I just remembered the standing up and the falling down, and then I know people did move me in the end, but I don't remember it. I couldn't see or feel anything at that point.
And you don't remember let me ask, do you remember much of anything or anything from the point where you're on shore till you wake up in the hospital?
No, I think I lost too much blood at that point. I mean, in the past I've lost a lot of blood from an injury when I was younger, and I lost sight and vision, I lost sight and hearing from that too. So I know that like once you do lose enough, certain parts stop working because your body's trying to keep you alive, not your senses.
You talked about artificial skin they had on at the hospital.
Yeah, the wound vac.
Yes.
Okay, I'm just jumping around a little bit during his testimony.
AJ, do you recall telling law enforcement, I don't think I touched him, but if I was, my hand was on his shoulder, it wasn't forceful?
Yeah.
And did you tell law enforcement your goal was to try to break it up?
Yes, I remember that.
I'm going to go through some slides with you.
I'm going to stop for just a minute because I'm going to tell you, because I know probably y'all are used to me being down on the defense attorneys, but I got to tell you, I'm not super impressed by the prosecution. And for the defense, they're pretty doggone good. I think that's the one by one of these attorneys. Well, that's Nicolae. He's obviously a lot thinner in that picture, the alleged defendant. Well, no, he is the defendant. But attorney for Kyle Rittenhouse is part of this team, and I think it's that fellow there. If y'all saw that, you would know. But anyhow, the defense is very good. The prosecution to me is not that great, but that's just my opinion. I just wanted to share that with you.
$26.80, is that your shorts?
Yep.
Oh, goodness.
Stopped at 2,800. That section of frames I just went through, AJ, is that the part where you got hit with a knife?
Yeah.
And did you know that guy's name at the time?
No.
Now you know him as Nicolae Miu.
Yeah.
No doubt that young fella has PTSD, whether he was right or wrong.
And I want to ask you a question quick before this exhibit 29. If you know, I don't want you to speculate, but do you know if that's, and again, don't answer if you don't know, that's fine to say you don't know. Is that from the slice, or did you have further incisions from surgery?
No, that's all from the slice. There's, it actually goes from, like, you can't see it super well in the picture, but it goes above my rib cage too. They didn't have to open me up. I was already open.
Do you know, can you show with your hands about how long the laceration was?
Yeah, about that. I mean, it's below the belt line to above my ribs.
Are you comfortable showing, do you have a scar?
Yeah, quite a big one.
Are you comfortable showing the jury?
Yeah, I can do that. Yeah.
Sure?
Yeah.
Okay.
Actually, it might be faster to just untuck it. It stops right there. There's a little gap there because it hit my ribs.
Gosh. Fat guys, it's amazing he's alive.
Thank you.
Yeah, I just wanted to share with you all that that's remarkable that he's alive. And now the defense is going to give him a cross-examination. And, you know, there's questionable things, whether he remembers or doesn't remember. But I just thought that was worth sharing. I mean, what Nicolae Miu, that thing he had in his pocket, I mean, it definitely can do some damage. Let's just put it that way.
You're the Nick Miu we've been talking about for the past 7 days? Yes, sir.
Nick, I want to right away talk to you about exhibit number 104, if I could have the screen. You were on the Apple River on July 30th.
Yes.
I want to ask you about this exhibit, which says it's from frame 2592 at 149 into the video. Have you seen this before?
Yes.
Do you remember that time in your life when you were on the river in that position as shown in that photograph?
Yes.
Sometime after that, did something happen to you?
Yes.
Were you punched?
Not before
Sometime
that.
after this, were you
After
punched?
that, yes.
Okay. I want to talk about the time between this and the time that you get punched, okay?
Okay.
Exhibit number 104 there is on the, with it. Where are you on that?
I'm standing in front of two ladies.
In which, if you were going to just describe the symbol on exhibit 104 symbolizing you, which one is that?
The one with the M.
Okay. What color?
Do you want the
Blue.
indicator?
At that point in time, you said there's two people in front of you. Who are those two people in front of you?
A blonde lady to my left and a red hair lady to my right.
Were there other, does this accurately reflect how you remember roughly people in general around you?
Yes.
The blonde lady in front and the other woman, you understand now that through the trial that the blonde woman is named Madison Coen?
Yes.
Can we use her name when possible?
Yes.
And the you said red-haired woman, her name's Ryhley Mattison. Can we use her name when possible?
Yes.
Possible. So when Ryhley and Madison are standing in front of you at that point, just before you get punched, right? What are they doing?
They're yelling at me. At one point, they were pointing downriver and saying, "Go, go, get away."
What are they doing with their hands?
They're touching me.
When you say touching you, is that something gentle?
No, they're pushing. Madison, she pushed against my left shoulder. She pushed against my chest. She was pointing her finger right at my face. She was yelling at me, very close to my face. Ryhley had one of her arms, I believe it was left hand, on my right arm, squeezing and pushing me back.
And you, when you just gave that description, you put your hands distance apart. Can you show us that again? How far away were they?
About a foot,
Okay.
less than a foot.
You've
something.
heard it described through trial as in your personal space. Would you agree with that?
Yes, right in my face, I would describe.
When that was happening, what did it sound like to you?
The volume was very, very high.
Let me ask you about how your body was responding in that moment when people are pushing you, poking at you, the volume is high. How's your heart? Could you tell us about what your heart rate was?
Oh yeah, my heart rate was getting really high. My breathing was getting very high. I was.
How about your vision? Did you
Yeah.
have normal vision in that moment?
No. At that moment, because of the situation, I was getting tunnel vision.
Can you describe what you mean by you say in tunnel vision?
I could see peripheral vision, but I could see center and right before my eyes.
How about hearing? Could you hear the noises?
I could hear the volume very high, but I couldn't understand what they were saying. The noise became garbled. I mean, the sound became garbled.
Did you feel threatened at that point?
Yes.
Did you have your knife in your right hand?
Yes.
What did you do with your left hand? Tell us what you did with your left hand.
Yeah, with my left hand, I pushed her away from my face.
Can you show us what you did with your left hand? Why'd you do that?
She was very close to my face. She was in my personal space. She had been there for a while, and I felt threatened.
Did you intend to harm her in some way?
No,
Did you try to harm her in some way?
absolutely not.
Do you know where, if at all, you had contact with her body when you raised your left hand in that manner?
No,
Do you think you had contact with her?
no.
Okay. I want to take us out of that space now for a second, okay, Nick?
Okay.
If I could have the screen again. You were here in court when we talked about, when we watched the video of you speaking with Brandy Hart, is that right?
Yes.
And I think you told her about your health condition. Can you just tell the jury now, what was your health like on July 30th of 2022?
It was very poor. Yeah.
Had you, I think you mentioned to her again, had quadruple bypass surgery before?
Yes, sir.
And when did you have that?
2020, about the same month. So about August.
Showing you here what's been marked as exhibit number 108. Can you tell us what those are pictures of, starting just on the left?
Yep. On the left, it's me right after the surgery, holding a red heart pillow against my surgery.
What was the purpose that you knew for that red heart pillow?
That was to protect my surgery from hits, bumps.
Was that something that the hospital provided? It looks like there's like almost a picture of heart and lungs on there.
It is. The hospital provided it.
And then the picture in the middle, what is that?
My first walk, my new life.
Did it take you some time to recover and be as active and mobile as you were before?
Oh, yeah.
Do you think you ever reached the same level of mobility and fitness that you were prior to the quadruple bypass?
Never.
What's the picture of you on the right there? You can tell us.
My baby.
Okay. Is that a dog?
Yeah.
Is that dog important to you?
My angel.
And that's the cushions helping you to enjoy time with her, but still keeping your chest safe.
Damn, they put the dog in there. That kind of gets me a little bit. Excuse me, my kitty is meowing, so I'm going to let her out. She might be back in. Sorry, guys. Okay, here we go.
Yes, sir.
Okay. You've had other surgeries in the past, is that right?
Yes.
Did you have a hernia surgery?
2 hernia surgeries.
Have you had back surgery?
Yes.
And again, in general, would you consider your fitness, if you were going to put it on a scale for July 30th, what would you consider your overall health and fitness on July 30th of 2022?
With my weight and very poor.
I want to ask you now about moving on to the Apple River on July 30th, okay?
Okay.
On that, this was a planned trip, is that right?
Yes.
Did you get a call from your friend Ernesto sometime before that trip?
Yes, sir.
What was that call about?
He wanted to remind me to bring my knife to cut string when we tied the tubes together.
Okay, when you say, do you have a pocket knife?
Yes.
Okay, can you tell us about that pocket knife?
I owned it for about 10 years. I have it a lot on me. I use it as basically a dual tool. I call it my Swiss Army knife, basically because I use it as a screwdriver. I cut insulation when I do electrical work. I use it pretty much everywhere.
Okay.
I'm an engineer. My tool.
Is it something that you've carried on your person, I don't want to say all the time, but somewhat routinely?
Yeah, when I knew I was going to work on something or need it for something, yes.
Okay. Now I want to skip ahead again now to the river, okay? At some point, did Ariel lose his phone?
Yes, he did.
Did you go to look for that phone?
I volunteered to go look for it.
When you went to go look for that phone, what were you wearing?
Before that,
No, right when you left your group to go look for that phone, what were you wearing?
So I took my goggles, my snorkel, and my swimming trunks.
Did you have anything on your feet?
Yes, I had on my feet. I had a pair of really, really torn up sandals.
Can I approach, Judge?
Yes.
Showing you what's been marked as Exhibit 113. Is this a packet of 9 photos of your sandals?
Yes.
You seen those?
Yes.
Does that accurately show the condition of the sandals?
Okay, I'm going to try to skip a little because I know that I guess he had sandals and they were beat up, and that contributed to him, I guess, being unsteady on his feet when the people were pushing him, and I don't know, but that's not as important as what's, the main stuff. So I'm going to move ahead a little.
A picture that better does it, but just briefly, describe the condition of those sandals.
Horrible.
Okay.
They were just coming apart. I couldn't walk on them unless I tried to.
Oh, I thought we were done with the sandals. I don't know what the bad sandals. Okay, that's his own fault that he wears bad sandals. I'm not saying. I'm just saying. I'm just saying. I don't. No, I'm sure it's important to them, but not to us. Okay, we may have to hear about the beaten up sandals a little bit more because we're going to get to a significant point. So just bear with me.
Left wearing those sandals and your shorts. Did you have your pocket knife with you?
Yes.
Where was it?
In my right pocket, clipped to my.
Did you have that there pretty much all day?
Yes.
You were here when we watched the video of your interview with Brandy Hart, is that right?
Yes.
When you spoke with Brandy Hart, were you truthful to her about the knife?
No. I lied about the knife.
Was that your knife?
Yes, it is. It was.
Did you bring it with you when you went to go look for the phone?
Yes, I did.
When you went to go look for the phone, did you have any intent to harm anybody?
No.
Why'd you go leave your group?
To go look for the phone.
Okay. At some point, did you have some contact with a group of teenagers?
Yes.
And you were here in court when we saw the 9-second video, is that right?
Yes.
I want to show you just a couple of slides from that, if I could. Do you see those slides up there?
Yes.
Are those from that video?
Yes.
What are you doing in those 3 slides in general?
I was scanning the water looking for the phone.
And are you, in that position, are you walking upriver or downriver?
Upriver, away from that group of boys.
Did you hear them say some things to you?
Yes.
Prior to your walking upriver and them, did you hear those words that I have written on that slide?
Yes.
Prior to your hearing those words when you were walking upriver, had you had verbal contact with that group?
I think so. They asked me what I was looking for, and I told them I'm looking for a phone, a lost phone.
Did you ever tell them that you were looking for little girls?
No.
Were you looking for little girls?
Absolutely not. It's pathetic.
When you, at the end of this, when you watch the video, at the end of the video, where I'm not going to play it, but do you remember what you did right there at the end?
At the end, I was walking away.
Did you eventually turn around and face in the direction of the group that was yelling at you and calling you a raper?
Yes.
When you...
Yes. I'll sustain the objection. The question was leading. Please continue.
What did you do at the end of the video?
I was walking away.
At some point, did you ever become in a position where you were looking at that group of teenagers that had yelled at you?
Yes.
What did you see when you were looking at that group of teenagers after the end of this video?
I saw them. I saw one of them holding a phone in a bag, and I believed it was what I was looking for. So I turned around and I started approaching them.
Why did you approach them?
I wanted to get a closer look at the phone to see if it was the one that belong to REM.
Did you eventually get near them?
Yes, I started walking, then I rushed the pace, stumbled, and fell on my knees, held on to their tube, at which point I lost my goggle and snorkel kit in the water.
You saw in the video, or excuse me, you saw during your interview with Brandy Hart that you said things different than what you just said now about what happened to your snorkel and goggles. Mm-hmm. Is that right?
Yes.
Is your memory sometimes different than what you see in the video?
Yes.
Was your memory, in your memory, what happened to your goggles?
In my memory, the goggles got
Knocked away?
knocked away. Yeah. So
Hold on a second. When there's an objection, just wait on your answer. It is leading, sustained. Next question, please. It's a leading question. Let's move on.
Is your memory perfect?
never.
Now that you've watched the video, do you realize that you were wrong about that?
Yes.
What happened to your goggles?
My goggles fell in the water.
When they fell in the water, what did you do?
I started looking for them, searching right where they fell.
Oops, on already. Showing you here some slides, 220, 225, and 279. Can you tell us what you're doing?
I'm searching for the goggle kit.
And where are you in relation to the 6 teenagers' tubes? Are you on the side? Are you upriver? Are you downriver? Are you in some other position?
I'm upriver. So, yeah.
I'm going to then show you another group of slides, 575, 600, and 625. What does that show you doing?
All right, so what I did from that point, I went around the inner tubes to the other side, and I continued looking for the goggle and snorkel set.
Why did you walk around from the one side to get to the other side of the tubes?
Well, I thought that the water current would bring him over to the other side, and I was walking away from the boys at the same time.
Okay. During that time that you walked in that direction, did you have any physical contact with them?
No,
Were you confronting them?
no. Didn't say a word.
This next set of slides, what does this show you doing here?
I'm walking away from the group.
Why?
Still,
Go ahead.
still looking for my goggles at that time.
When you were doing that, did you ever hear the kids say anything?
They gave me a warning.
What'd they say?
You got 10 seconds.
In response to that, what did you do?
I ignored them, and I actually continued doing what I was doing.
Okay. I'll show you the next set of slides here. Were you in a position to see here 963, 1140, and 1155, what the teenagers were doing behind you?
They were getting closer and closer to me. They were walking towards me.
Were you in a position to see that? Was that behind you, or had you turned around?
Well, I could hear their voices. I could hear that they were getting closer. At some point, I may have turned my head and witnessed that. They're coming towards me.
Showing you 1170, 1213, and 1284. What's happening here?
I'm at an angle to them, but I could say I have my back at them, still scanning the water, and they were right behind me. They got that close. Within seconds, they were right behind me.
At some point, did you see other people from another group?
Yes.
What did you see?
I saw what seemed to me at the time adults coming over from the other side of the river.
And when you saw adults coming over from the other side of the river, what did you do?
I walked towards them. I walked towards this. The first one was was Madison.
When you walked towards Madison, where were the 6 teenage boys that had been yelling at you?
They were following me.
Okay. Were you in their path as you walked across the river towards Madison?
No,
Did they have as far as you know, did they have a clear path down the river if they wanted?
more than plenty.
Can I? Showing you this next group of photos, what's going on here?
So in this frame here, the first adult that came to me was Madison. She already had her finger pointing downriver and yelling at me and used some awkward words, ordering me to go down.
We see it looks like you're doing something with your right hand. Do you remember what are you doing with your right hand?
Yep, I was trying to explain to her what I'm looking for.
When you tried to explain to her what you were looking for, did you get the impression she was listening to you?
No, her voice was too loud to.
What Madison had as an impression.
Okay.
Hold on, wait a second. Sustain. Speculation.
I'm asking about his impression, so I'll rephrase. Did you get the impression that Madison Coen was going to listen to your words?
No,
Why not?
because she was too loud. She never stopped to give me a chance to talk, and she kept pointing and ordering me to go downriver.
We've all heard the tape, but was she using polite language?
Polite? No.
Did you hear anyone saying anything behind you when you walked over to Madison Coen?
Yes, they're all calling me names.
Okay. Showing you the next set of slides here, 1776, 1840, and 1824. What are you doing here in this set of slides?
I'm turning my back towards Madison and the rest of the people.
Why did you turn your back to Madison and the rest of the people?
It felt to me like I couldn't have a conversation with her at that point. She was not listening, and I didn't want to interact any further.
Had you at that point found your snorkel or goggles?
No,
Had you at that point found the phone?
no.
Did you hear anybody saying anything while you stood there with their back to them?
Oh yeah,
What did you hear?
they were still yelling. He's looking for little girls.
Were you looking for little girls?
Absolutely not.
When you heard them, did you consider that to be a lie?
Objection, Your Honor. Leading. Sustain.
I asked, did you consider that to be a lie? I don't.
Yes,
think
of
Hold on,
course.
please.
Don't think that's legal.
I sustain the objection. Please move on.
When you heard that, did you consider it to be truthful or did you consider it to be untrue?
Untrue.
And when you heard someone say an untruth about you, did that change how you were feeling?
I felt frustrated. I felt annoyed. They kept saying it over and over, so it annoyed me and frustrated me.
And when you heard them say this untruth about you, did it appear to you as if the other group that had come over agreed with what these the teenagers were yelling about you?
Objection, leading.
Sustain.
Did you think anybody in the other group was going to help you or listen to you when you were being called these names and accused of being a pedophile?
Objection, leading.
Sustain.
How did you feel?
Well, I felt overwhelmed at that point. I felt still annoyed, frustrated. I felt like she wasn't listening. She was the adult I thought I was going to reason with or get help from. She obviously didn't even attempt to reprimand the children from yelling.
Showing you another slide here, some 1838, 1846, and 1865. Is that you?
Yes.
What are you doing?
Judge, can we approach?
Yes.
What Madison did, if anything, to you?
Yeah.
What did she do?
She grabbed my right arm and she pulled me towards her, and I lost my balance, so I moved towards her.
Did you consider that in that circumstance to be a gentle or a gracious touch?
No, that was not a gracious touch. No, not at all.
Had she been using any gentle or gracious words with you?
Not that, no, not that I remember.
In those photos, can we see the footwear that you were wearing on that day?
Yep, those sandals that we saw earlier.
Did you have confidence in your footing in that area with those sandals?
Objection, leading.
Sustained.
Back to the
How
sandals.
did you feel about your footing in that area?
Very unstable.
Want to show you the next set of slides here. Do you remember what you say to Madison after she pulled on your right arm?
Yeah, I told her not to touch me
And why did you tell her that?
because she pulled on me without my invitation.
Did you say that in any particular tone?
No, not in a mean tone, but I made it sound so she could hear me. Don't touch me.
Okay. Why didn't you want her to touch you?
I didn't give her permission to do so.
Sure. But why did you not want to give her permission to do so?
Because she was one track mind. She just wanted to get me away from that, point me down river, and tell me to go there.
What's your comfort level at this point?
On a scale from 1 to 10, comfort level is very low.
Okay. Are you, if you had that same thing, a scale of like a fear scale, a 1 to 10 fear scale, right? And so
Yeah.
with 10 being the most fearful you've ever been in your life, and 0, let's call 0 to 10 being the most safe you've ever felt. Where are you at here on a fear scale?
In that particular,
Yeah.
about 1.
Okay. So you're more uncomfortable, but not necessarily afraid. Is that what I understand?
Correct.
At where was your group in relation to you then?
Was upriver.
And did you do anything in order in relation to your group?
Yep.
What did you do?
I turned to them and I called them. I was trying to call them to come over and help me.
Are these slides? Does this 2127, 2140, 2131? What does that show you doing?
I was waving at them and calling them to come over.
When you say you were calling them, did you do something physical or did you do something verbal or did you do both?
Physical.
Did you make any verbal comments at that point?
No.
Why not?
It was very loud. All around me was very loud. I don't think that anybody could have heard me at 100 and some feet away.
With everybody else yelling, did you think your yelling was going to de-escalate or escalate the situation?
When everybody's raising their voice, I don't think having another raised voice would help the situation.
After you raised your hand to call for your friends, did you see Madison Coen doing anything?
Oh yeah, she was looking towards her group, and then she waved to them to come over to her.
Is that what we're seeing here in 2261, 2262, and 2263? What do you see?
Yep, she's calling her group over.
Did you remember when she called her group over, did her group respond?
Yes,
Did they join that?
yes,
Showing you now these slides, is that what you saw?
yes.
I think we asked you questions before about Exhibit 104 with you with the blue dot and the other red dots. When you were, were you standing there? Were other people around you?
Yes.
When you were standing there in that moment with the other people around you after you've called your friends once, was that other group, did they appear to be afraid to you?
Afraid from me?
Afraid. Did they appear? When you look at them, do they look like they're in fear?
No, absolutely.
What does it look like to you?
They're all laughing and enjoying themselves
At whose expense?
at my expense.
And
Speculation as to what these other.
Sustained. Speculation as to what other people think. Next question.
how did you feel in that moment when they were around you saying those things? Did you think they wanted you to join in their laughter?
No,
Did you want to join in their laughter?
No, absolutely not. It was
Where, if this fear scale is going, is it staying at 1 or is it moving in a particular direction?
it's creeping up.
Showing you another set of slides here, 2328, 2311, 2382. Do you remember, what do you remember about that?
I remember the young boys are yelling, pointing at me, saying things that are not true.
Were you able to see, like in this next slide, this 2429, 2440, 2401, were you able to see as you stood there what everybody was doing, and were you able to scan and see that?
For a brief second, yes.
Okay.
They were very close. They were really close to me. I could see and hear them.
How about your fear scale there? Where is it? Where is it?
About 2 or 3.
Okay. I see in the one on the right there, you have your hand someplace. Can you tell me what you're doing with your right hand?
Yes, I'm reaching for my pocket knife
Why?
because at one point my fear was getting really high,
Okay.
and I was getting ready to pull it out.
Do you remember, other than what you've talked about, Madison Coen pulling you, which we saw, do you remember anybody else touching, pushing, grabbing you in any way?
The 2 ladies, yeah.
Do you
Madison.
showing you here what's 2472, 2478, 2481. Do you remember what's happening in those photos?
Yes. This one, the lady on my right side, she grabbed my arm and she was pushing against my arm.
And did that increase your level of comfort or increase your level of fear or something different?
So it decreased my level, the level of comfort, and increased my fear.
Do you remember, at some point, do you take your knife out of your pocket?
Yes, I do.
Do you know when that is in relation to these slides? Do you have a memory exactly of when that is?
Not exactly, but when they were pushing and poking at me, I remember I pulled it out then.
Okay. Do you remember, did you have it out before you were punched or after you were punched?
Before I was punched.
Okay. Showing you another set of slides here. It looks like do you remember doing something with your left hand?
Yeah, at that moment I really needed my people to come over and help me, so I was trying to get their attention.
One more slide here. Do you, what's happening here in this slide?
Madison is pushing on my left shoulder and basically yelling at me right in my face.
And then on the next slide, we see something in your hand. Is that right?
That's a knife.
Why did you take out your knife at that point?
I was beginning to be afraid.
And what was it about that moment where everybody is that made you so fearful that you took out your knife?
I was surrounded. They were yelling. They had just pushed me. Well, the lady, they squeezed my arm. I mean, it seemed like they were not backing away.
Previously, you turned around. Is that right?
Yes.
Did you feel comfortable turning around in this situation?
No.
Why not? Can I have the screen? Mr. Miu, when we finished, I think we were getting to the chronological space that we had begun the morning on, and so I want to start from there again and then move forward from there. Does that make sense?
Yes.
When I had asked you before, you talked about how you felt, but since that time you've told the jury that you had this fear scale, okay? Mm-hmm. So I want to ask you about, at this time, what we see here, what you previously described the scene, right? Mm-hmm. How were you feeling on the fear scale?
About a 6, 7.
Okay. And at some point, I think you told them before, but just so we can put it into the context here, did you do something in response to something that was done to you when you're standing there in this moment?
Yes, after I was pushed, and both sides, I would say, squeezed, I was afraid, so I pulled out my knife.
Okay. Did you do something with your left hand at some point?
Yes, I did.
What'd you do with your left hand?
I pushed her away. I
when you
pushed
say
Madison.
Push Madison away. Was the purpose in that to have contact with her and to get her to back up?
Yes.
Did you have a purpose to cause her pain?
No.
Were you trying to hurt her?
No.
What were you trying to do?
I was trying to push her away from my space. She was right in my space, in my face.
Why didn't you just back up?
I couldn't back up at that moment.
Okay. When you say you couldn't back up, why not?
I
Because
would've-
you felt uncomfortable, or were you?
Objection leading.
Because I would have had.
Wait, there's an objection. Sustained on leading. Next question.
Wasn't done with it. Were you uncomfortable, or was there a wall behind you, or was there some other reason? Why did you feel like you couldn't back up?
I didn't feel safe turning my back on those people.
Okay. How about just taking a step backwards?
Well, I was standing my ground. I didn't move towards anybody.
Okay.
They were coming at me.
When you raised your left hand and you did that, do you recall when you pushed her away having contact with her?
I may have, yes.
Okay. Do you remember in particular where, if at all, you touched her?
No.
Okay. Would it surprise you if you touched her?
No.
Was that, in fact, your purpose in pushing her away?
Absolutely.
Okay.
She was in my space.
I want to move forward here. And you can turn the slide off, I guess. And after you did that, right, did something happen to you?
Yeah.
Did people do something to you?
Yeah.
What was done to you?
Yeah, almost right away I got punched. And fell in the water.
Where did you get punched?
On my face. On my side of the head.
Now, you've had a chance to watch this video, correct?
Yes.
Have you had a chance to see these 4,800 slides?
Yes.
Prior to seeing that, did you remember everything?
No.
Have the video or the slides helped you to refresh your memory in some way?
A lot.
Have you remembered everything because you've seen that?
Not everything, no.
Okay. Do you remember something different than what you see in the video?
No.
You don't remember any of the things different than that you see in the video, like you talked about the goggles?
Objection leading.
Overruled. We're just trying to reorient the witness to a place where the examination can continue.
Are there some times when your memory is different from what the video is?
Yes, of course.
Okay. Now, this series that I want to show you is about things that were done to you, okay?
Yes.
Do you have a specific memory about everything that was done to you?
No.
Do you have a specific memory about everything that you did in response to what was done to you?
No.
Do you have a memory about how you felt in those moments?
I would say yes, I do.
Do you have a memory of what you believed in those moments based upon those feelings?
Of course.
So I want to show you the slide here. Again, this is slide 2661, 2662, and 2681. That's fine. Do you remember how you felt when you fell back into the water?
I was, number one, I was stunned. That's why I fell backwards. I was very afraid, of course.
On this fear scale that you've talked about before, where are you on that scale from 0 to 10?
Right at the top, 10.
Have you ever been at that 10 before in your life?
Never been in a situation like this or a fight in my life.
Have you ever been at a 10?
Never.
When you did that, as we see on the right, what happened to your head?
Oh, I fell in the water. Obviously, that's a river, and I hit my head on river rock, and My whole body went under. Well,
Okay.
my head went underwater.
When you say your head went under, is that what it felt like?
Yes,
Did you feel water come over your face?
over my
Objection.
entire body.
Hold on,
Yes,
hold on. What's the objection?
Leading.
Sustained.
Where did you feel the water on your body?
over my face, my mouth.
Okay.
I felt like I was submerged in water at the moment.
Did you try to get up?
Yes,
Why did you want to get up? Why didn't you just lay down there peacefully in the water?
to drown. No, I wouldn't want to do that. I wanted to get up out of the water.
At that moment, when you're down in the water, had anybody like A.J. Martin come up to you and said, just lay there and rest?
Somebody came from behind. Yes, I found out later who he was and pushed me down and to keep me in the water.
Before that, when you tried to get up, do you remember feeling anything before that? Did you told the,
Yeah,
did you feel anything to any part of your head?
yes, of course.
What did you feel?
Felt punched in the head.
Showing you the next slides, is that 2701, 2705, 2706? What's happening to you there?
I'm getting hit on the head.
How many times at that point, is your memory of watching the video and your memory of experiencing this, have you been hit in the head now, but either by people or by the ground or by the water?
4 times at least.
Okay. At this point in time, where's your fear scale?
At 10.
When this happened to you, did you immediately get up or did you fall back in the water or did something else happen?
I tried getting up, but I couldn't.
Did you, at some point, did you feel something on your backside?
There was somebody pushing me down.
And when you felt that on your backside, did you feel anything else anywhere else?
I got hit in the face, in the front of my head.
And is that exhibit here, 2147, do you see that hand through the underarm there?
Yes,
Do you remember getting hit in the head there?
yes.
Was that a gentle hit?
No,
When you're getting hit in the head here again, where are you at on the fear scale at that point?
10.
Have you been able to get up out of the water?
No.
How many people do you know? How many people are attacking you?
At the time I didn't know, but I knew there were more than I could handle.
Did it feel like it was, how many people did it feel like?
Like 10.
Okay. You've seen the video and you responded at some point, is that right?
Yes,
And you used your knife in response.
yes.
Why did you use your knife?
I feared for my life.
Did you think you could get out of there without using your knife?
I couldn't even get up. They're pushing me down. No, so answer is no.
In that time when you're down on the ground, did you think there was a way for you to escape?
No,
Did you feel like you could just crawl away or run away or walk away or do anything else to escape?
not in that position.
The next day after this, July 31st, were you in the, did you feel, how did your body feel the next day?
I hurt everywhere. My head hurt, my throat hurt, obviously my back hurt. I hurt everywhere.
You said your throat hurt. Is that something you remembered that day before when you were speaking with Brandy Hart?
Yes,
Okay.
yes.
Did you mention it to Brandy Hart?
I don't remember.
Okay. Did you see anything, when you felt the pain about your throat, did you see anything that refreshed your memory about what caused that pain to your throat?
After watching the video, yes.
Okay. What happened?
I got hit in the throat.
Do you remember that now?
Yes.
If I can.
Okay, I'm going to stop here and go over to the cross-exam.
An approach, Judge.
Okay, cross-exam now.
Mr. Miu, you've been drinking that day, right?
Yeah, I had a like
Showing what's
beers.
marked as Exhibit 12A. You recognize that?
Yes.
That's the group photo of you folks from the beginning of the river.
Yep.
In fact, you're holding a beer.
Correct.
Looks like everybody in your group has some sort of alcoholic beverage.
Looks like it.
You see numerous people in your group with these phone cases around their necks.
Yeah.
And as you're going down the river, you saw lots of people with phone cases around their necks, right?
Mm-hmm.
All day long.
Yeah.
In fact, River's Edge sells or rents out those phone cases, right?
I don't know that.
Did people in your group rent or buy phone cases from the tube rental?
I have no
stand?
idea.
Right? You've testified that you were told to bring the knife before you left your home, right?
Correct.
And the reason for bringing your knife on the river was to cut strings or ropes for the tubes, right?
Correct.
And that was the reason you brought it.
Correct.
In fact, you told the police that after your tubes were tied together, you thought you put your knife back in the car, right?
Correct.
In fact, it was in your pocket.
Yes.
Was it in your pocket the whole day?
No.
All right, well, we're going to get to that. Once the tubes are tied together with the rope, and you said that you thought that you put it back in your car, you don't have a reason to have the knife anymore, right? It accomplished its purpose, right?
I didn't know that at the time.
Right? Did you tell the cops, the police, that you didn't think you were going to need it, and that's why you thought you put it in the car?
I may have.
All right. Were you present when Steve Kaufman, who owns River's Edge, testified first day of the trial?
Yes.
And you heard him say that they sell pre-cut cords for $1, right?
Right.
All right. And then, as you see in the picture, when you got on the river, you were wearing that long sleeve camo shirt, right?
Mm-hmm.
And a hat and sunglasses.
Correct.
All right. Ariel's phone was in one of those cases, right?
Sure. Yeah. Yeah, I can see it.
All right. And is it your understanding that those cases are float cases?
That's what I was told.
All right. And you told Lieutenant Hart that it was in a float case, right?
Correct.
Once the phone disappeared, there was conversation amongst the folks in your group about whether it was even worth it to go look for it, right?
That's what I learned.
And in fact, you were told that they didn't care about the lost phone because they had insurance to cover it, right?
That's what I learned here, but I don't remember that as a conversation.
Nobody asked you to go look for the phone, right?
Correct.
You chose to do that on your own.
I volunteered.
And in fact, members of your group were a little annoyed that you were stopping again so quickly after having been at the hideaway where you'd stopped for lunch.
Objection, speculation.
Sustained.
Did you hear anybody in your group say, "Why are we stopping again?"
I didn't stop the group.
The group stopped when you decided to go off on your own to look for this phone, right?
Speculation.
Overruled.
Right?
They already stopped. I got off the tube to look for so I didn't stop.
In any event, you're the one who insisted on looking for it. Nobody asked you to do that, right?
Objection.
Sustained.
And when you left to go look for the phone, you had your goggles and your snorkel, right? You knew that the phone was in a float bag, at least that's what you told police afterwards, right? Is that a yes?
Yes.
So the phone and the float bag would have been floating, right?
Supposedly,
All right, and so you wouldn't need a snorkel and goggles to find a phone floating on top of the water, right?
I wasn't sure if it was actually floating or not and never tested it.
All right, well, you would agree that a phone has some weight to it,
Yes.
and if it wasn't a float bag, it would sink to the bottom, right?
Yes.
Where it was dropped.
Correct. Well, or remember, it's a river, so it could have flown down.
The river has current, right?
Right. So it could
I'm going to
have.
approach, I'm going to draw something here.
Yes.
Now, you remember when you met with Lieutenant Hart, you drew a diagram of the river. All right, and this is your group up here at the sandbar, right?
Mm-hmm.
This is the boys' group down here. I'll put initials IS for Isaac Schuman, right?
Correct.
This is this is the diagram that you wrote, drew for Lieutenant Hart. The phone was lost over here, right? Instead of looking downstream for it, where the current was going, you went this way, across the current,
No,
to look for the phone. You made contact with Isaac Schuman's group on the other side of the river.
but that's not where I started looking for it, straight across the river.
That's where you ended up making contact with
I
him.
ended up there, but I didn't start there.
All right. The phone would not have floated across the current, right?
Well, I don't know where he lost it. That's where we pulled over. He could have lost it minutes before we even anchored.
So when you testified a minute ago that the phone was lost, where your group was labeled M, now you're changing that story?
In that vicinity.
Again, members of the jury, what the attorneys say is not evidence. Rely on the witness's testimony. Next question, please.
In any event, it's your testimony that you had reason to go over to the south side of the river where Isaac Schuman's group was, to look for a phone. That's your story?
I had reason to search in that area. I didn't know where that phone fell in the water. I don't think even Ariel knew where he lost it. We didn't drop the phone when we anchored. He dropped the phone before we got there.
Fair to say that at that point the river is 150 feet wide,
Yep.
and Isaac Schuman's group was on the south side of the river.
Correct.
Your group's on the north side of the river.
100 feet.
Rather than searching the north side, you went to the south side of the river. Is that fair to say?
I already looked in that area.
That's not what I'm asking. You went over to the south side of the river, right?
Overruled. You can answer the question.
You did, right?
What was that question again?
You went over to the south side of the river to supposedly look for this phone, right?
I ended up there at that point, yes.
And you chose to go over there and look for it, where these boys were.
Overruled. You can answer the question.
Oh,
You chose to go over to where these boys were to supposedly look for this phone, right?
chose to look in that area, yes.
There was other areas of the river where these boys weren't located that you could have searched until they floated past. Right?
A million other spots.
Sure. But you chose to go to that spot.
I didn't even notice those boys there at the time when I was searching.
You were present in court when Eric Williams, who was a member of your group, testified, right?
Right?
You heard him testify?
Yes.
And you were here when he testified that he had some concerns about you going over to snorkel by this group, Isaac's group.
I heard him.
And one of his concerns is that he thought that they would think you were a predator, right?
Sustained.
He testified that you didn't have your knife in your pocket the whole time, right?
Correct.
When you decided to go snorkel over by Isaac Schuman's group, you had the knife in your pocket.
Yes.
Did you go back to your group and get it?
No, I had the knife. I testified I did not have the knife in my pocket the whole time. When we pulled over there, I fixed my shoes. Then I left it in my pocket.
All right, but somehow, so when you get ready to snorkel,
Yes.
you've taken off your shirt, right?
Yes.
Your hat,
Yes.
your sunglasses.
Correct.
You left the knife in your pocket.
I forgot it in my pocket.
Well, on the video, we can see you touching your knife, right? You knew it was in your pocket.
Well, when you walk, it starts, yeah, but
It has weight,
Right,
right?
yeah.
So you can't forget it's there because it's got weight. Correct?
at some point I forgot I had it in my pocket when, yeah.
You
when
weren't
you
gonna-
walk.
You were not going to need your knife to snorkel and look for a lost phone.
Correct.
Overruled.
You weren't going to need your knife for that task that you set out to do, right?
I wouldn't even need anything.
But you brought it with you anyhow.
It happened to be in my pocket, yes.
When she got over to where Isaac Schuman's group was, they made it readily apparent they did not want you over by them, correct?
That's not true.
They didn't call you names?
Yes, but they asked me what I was looking for. And I thought they were polite people. I said, I'm looking for my lost phone.
They did not want you by them, and they told you that, right?
At some point, yes.
And that's the short video. You turn around and you're walking away, right?
Yes.
But then Joanne Cockfield calls you a raper, right?
Yes.
And then you turn around.
Yes.
And you were angry.
I was not angry.
You were not angry that someone called you a raper,
No.
all right? You look at Joanne, who's filming you, right?
Yeah.
And for some reason, your testimony is that even though many people on the river have these phones and these float cases, you decided that was the phone and you needed to run up and check.
Objection argumentative.
Sustained.
Your testimony earlier was you thought he had the phone, right?
I thought he had the phone, yes.
Right.
I wanted to investigate.
And you, instead of walking up and saying, hey, is that the phone I'm looking for, you ran up on these boys, didn't you?
I ran up and stumbled, and then I fell right by there, yes.
That's my next question. You're claiming now that you stumbled.
Yes.
You've never said that before today, ever, to anybody, any law enforcement or anybody else. Right?
But I have seen the videos now.
Well, we're going to take a look at the video.
What is he on? Whoa! 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 Get away!
So you're claiming today that where you reach down and grab at these boys' legs, where their tubes are, that was a stumble. Is that your story?
Overruled. You can answer the question.
I know I hit a stone, yes. But I grabbed onto their inner tubes.
And you know where you grabbed onto their inner tube is where two of these boys had their legs draped over their inner tubes, right?
I see that.
And you made contact with their legs, didn't you?
I don't remember that.
Did you see it on the video?
I see it on the video. I don't remember actually making contact.
And as soon as you did that, these boys jumped out of their tubes to get away from you, right? You remember that?
Yeah.
And you held onto their tubes so that their tubes couldn't float away.
For how long?
Well, I'm asking you. You did.
Yeah, it looks like for a brief 1 second.
And you were searching through their tubes.
Or what?
You walked around their tubes. Rather than letting their tubes go so they could get back in their tubes and be on their way, you walked around their tubes.
So after my goggles dropped in the water, I went around their tubes to go to the other side and look for my goggles.
Let's talk about your goggles for a second, because you told the police, specifically Lieutenant Hart, that these boys knocked your goggles off your face and that you were looking for your goggles at that point, right?
I don't remember my interview with her, correct?
But you heard yourself say it in the interview.
Yes. Yes.
And in fact, that nothing of the sort ever happened, right?
So the interview with Brandy Hart was not accurate.
What you said at the time is what you wanted the police to believe happened, right?
That's what I remember.
Sorry for my
at the time.
cat.
And from the video, you can see that you actually put your goggles in your mouth so you would have two free hands to be able to grab onto these boys' tubes, right?
Yes.
So you were preparing for your stumble before it actually even happened?
I wasn't prepared for anything.
These boys were calling you names to go away, right? After you grabbed onto their tubes, touched their legs.
I don't remember any of that stuff.
All right, you don't remember them calling you, asking you what you were doing?
Watching the videos, yes, but unnatural remembering, no.
Do you remember as you're running up, they're saying, whoa, 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 what's he doing?
I don't remember that.
All right, but you've seen it on the video.
Yes.
And then once you've made contact with two of these boys' legs and grabbed onto their tubes, they started calling you a pedophile, right?
I don't remember when they started calling me.
Do you remember them calling you a pedophile at all? Or do you just know that from watching the video?
Correct.
You testified that they were calling you names earlier, right?
Right.
And that upset you.
It did not upset me.
Okay, your attorneys talked about your comfort scale and your fear scale. Let's talk about your anger scale, okay? Mm-hmm. At the time you were called a raper, what was your anger scale at?
Maybe 1.
1 out of 10?
Yeah.
And that was enough to get you to run up on these boys, grab onto them, stop their tubes at a 1. Is that what you're saying?
Objection, argument, that's not what he said.
Sustained.
You don't like being humiliated, right?
Nobody does.
Your attorney has said that these boys were humiliating you.
Objection as to his.
Sustained on the form.
You're claiming that you were being taunted.
Objection, did not testify to that.
Sustained. Form.
You had testified earlier that your shoes, there was problems with your shoes, but as you can see from the portion of the video we played so far, those shoes didn't prevent you from running up on these boys, right?
Yes, they did. If I had better shoes, I could walk better, but I could still walk.
If you had better shoes, you would have been able to run up on them faster.
No, I mean, I could walk better. I wouldn't stumble. I wouldn't have a hard time walking.
All right, we're going to watch the video again, and I want you to, if you can, point out for everybody where you stumbled.
What is he on? Whoa! 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 Get away!
Did you watch it?
Yes,
So the stumble, is that something you remember or something that you think you see in the video?
something I remembered.
After you grabbed onto their tubes, stopped them, walked around their tubes, you took a few steps downriver and stood in the path they were floating in, right?
Has to form multiple.
Overruled. Do you understand the question, Mr. Miu?
Could you say it again?
After you left their tubes that first time, you took a few steps downstream and stood in their path where they would need to float, where they were floating, right?
For a few seconds, yes.
You didn't walk off to the south shore, which was close at that point, right?
I thought I walked far away from them. I didn't even watch them anymore at that point, so I don't know where they were at that point in time. But I was still looking for my goggles now.
Are you denying that you stood right in the path of their tubes?
Objection, argument.
Overruled. You can answer the question.
At that moment in time, yes.
Now, when you ran up on these boys and grabbed onto their tubes and made contact with their legs, you weren't saying anything at that point, right?
No.
You didn't say anything like, hey, I think that's my phone, or Ariel's phone.
I don't remember saying anything.
You've seen the video.
Right.
You just ran up and grabbed onto them, right?
It appears that.
was saying nothing. We can go up to the screen. We're going to look at some more frames here. We're starting 20-second mark, I believe. You stood in front of their tubes, right? This is at the 23-second mark.
For a brief moment.
All right, keep going. Stop. At that point, you had the entire river open to move in any direction, right?
Right.
You chose to just walk a few steps directly downstream from where their tubes were, right?
Correct.
The boys were yelling at you at this point, right? You remember that?
Yep.
They were making a commotion, right? They were loud. And that attracted the attention of the folks in the Carlson Group, right? You've testified that Madison Coen walked over, right?
Yep.
You walked towards her.
Yes.
And the water level at the spot that you had contact with Maddie was about ankle deep from the video.
From the video, yes.
And you told Lieutenant Hart you were standing in really shallow water, right?
Yep.
Maddie told you to leave the area, right?
She didn't say it that way, but yes.
She said go, go, go.
And?
She swore at you too, but she was telling you to go, right?
Yeah.
You didn't go.
I was trying to communicate with her what I was doing in the river.
You didn't leave, right?
No, not down the river.
Overruled. It's relevant.
You did not leave, right?
I
At the
didn't
time
go
that
in
she
the
came up
direction. No.
When she came up and said, go, 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 you chose to stay, right?
I wanted to talk.
You didn't like that she was yelling at you, right?
I only had like 2 or 3 seconds of direct verbal or whatever.
And you clearly didn't like she was swearing at you, right? And what you told her was not that you were looking for a phone, but that these boys took your goggles, right?
I don't remember what I told her.
Right. If it's on the video, did you say it?
If it's on the video, yeah.
You never mentioned you were looking for a phone.
I don't remember my conversation with
And
her.
in fact, after you told her that they took your goggles, you never said another word, right?
After that?
Right.
Of course I did.
Talking about your anger scale, at the point where Madison Coen was yelling at you and pointing at you and swearing at you, where was your anger scale?
1.
And even with your anger scale being only 1, you started fidgeting with the knife in your pocket, right?
I don't remember that.
Let's take a look at the video. We're ready. It's timestamp 135. That's you touching your knife in your pocket, right?
Correct.
And at this point, you've got your back to the 2 girls who were yelling at you, right?
It's possible.
So even though you were fearing for your life, you turned,
I'll reset at that time.
Overall, let's get the question out.
you turned your back on these folks, right?
Where am I in that location as reference to the other people?
I get to ask the questions at this point, okay?
All right.
You're back at the 135 mark that we just watched. You've turned your back on these folks, right?
Okay.
Is that true?
Yes, I see
Side,
that. Yeah.
Right. You're touching your knife, but you got your back to them, right?
I see that in the picture.
And so at that point, you wouldn't have turned your back on these folks if you had fear of them, right?
Objection mischaracterizes his testimony.
Overruled. We can answer the question. Yes.
Stop. Stopping at 135. So in that clip, that's the point where you had waved at your friends, right? You had turned your back on the groups of people that were in the area, and you're touching your knife, right? And at that point, you called out to your friends because I think you had said, and maybe I'm wrong, that your fear scale was going up at that point. Is that not right?
I see lots of people around me, and I wanted somebody to be on my side.
Right. Your fear scale was going up, so you tried to wave your buddies over, right?
Creeping up, yeah.
And as it's creeping up, you're fidgeting with your knife.
It appears that way.
At some point, and even though your fear level is creeping up at that point and you've called for help from your friends, or at least waved for help, you turn your back, right?
Yes.
At one point, you turn your head and you stare at the group of 17-year-old boys, right? Do you remember doing that?
I don't remember it, but if I could see a video.
Put it into context, it would have been at the point when Maddy Coen tried to turn you away from those boys. Do you remember doing that?
Yes.
And 1 second. Right there. If we can get the frame up. We're at timestamp 116. That's the look that you gave to those boys, right? At that time, at 116?
Yes.
That's the look on your face.
Yeah.
That's an angry look.
Not to me. I was annoyed, more than frustrated, but not angry.
At the point where you looked at the boys with that expression on your face, whatever it was, you had the entire river in front of you open to walk to, right? That's true.
Correct.
And instead you chose to turn back around where Maddy Coen was, right?
I stood my ground. I basically stayed in the same location.
Right.
I didn't go towards anybody at that point.
You didn't take a step away either, did you?
No.
And at that point then, that's when Ryhley Mattison joins her. And you've got Madison and Ryhley standing in front of you, right?
I suppose that's the time, yeah.
2 girls.
Yeah.
And these 2 girls standing in front of you touched your shoulders somewhat, right?
Mm-hmm.
You never said yes?
Yes.
You never stumbled backwards or anything like that?
It wasn't somewhat, but
Well, let's take a look at the video. we're going to start a little bit earlier than the part I wanted to start at. It's at the 135 mark again, if we can put this screen up. You take the screen down.
You know, that doesn't mean that's how he was being.
All right, so you had been fidgeting with your knife multiple times. You've got Ryhley Mattison in front of you. I believe her testimony was she's a 115-pound woman. You got Madison Coen on your other side. This is when you choose to pull out your knife, right?
Overruled. Understand the question?
What does her weight have to do with me?
Sir, you don't get to ask the
Oh, I'm
questions
sorry.
at this point. You pulled out your knife at this point with these two girls standing in front of you, right?
Yes.
And you held it down by your belt line, right?
Yes.
And you opened it up, right?
Yes.
And this is before you had been punched or anything like that. You had that knife ready with these two girls standing in front of you.
Objection as to use of the term girls or women.
Women, pardon me. Right?
There's one thing that's funny, and this is from both sides. So, the young women or girls were, in fact, young women, but they both use it for their benefit because they would call the younger adults that came over, the Carlsons, you know, girls, boys, but they were young adults. And the teens, kids, which basically are, but, you know, almost adults, but it doesn't matter. But then on the other side, they keep trying to make him sound like an old, sick man, you know, who has had health issues. But again, I don't think, you know, early 50s is old by today's standards. So both sides are kind of using that, you know, girl, old, feeble man thing. Just an observation, but it's an interesting case. I'll give them that.
And you didn't hold it up and say, hey, I have a knife. Right?
To me, that would be a threat.
Well, I'm not asking you that. You did not hold it up.
No.
And you didn't, in fact, you held it down by your side. Right?
Objection asked and answered.
Overruled.
Isn't that what you did?
Yes.
You didn't take a step back and brandish it and say, hey, back up, I have a knife. Right?
Correct.
You opened it down low, and then you held it down low by your side. Right.
Correct.
And as you're doing that, you're smiling. Right?
That's not a smile.
Well, let's take a look at the video.
I'm overwhelmed and annoyed.
And that's you holding your knife down by your belt line, right?
Yes.
When you pulled it out and opened it up, you held it with the blade facing up, right?
I didn't pay attention, but in the video, yes.
And it becomes important later when you stab AJ because you didn't try to cut him down, you cut him off, right? Right?
That was not my intent.
Form.
Overruled. I believe the witness answered the question.
You had the knife blade up and you're saying you didn't know that?
I didn't pay attention.
As you're holding it there, you've got your thumb on the bottom of the handle, right? Right?
Yeah,
Blade up.
I see that.
Blade's pointing at, looks like at Maddy Coen, right?
Yes.
Nobody else. I'll strike that. After you opened that knife, would it be fair to say that your fear level went down a little bit because now you had your knife open?
No.
All right. Was your fear level going up at that point? I think you said that earlier.
The whole situation was boiling up.
So when you have your knife open, you take a couple step backwards to get away from the situation?
I stood my ground. I stayed in place.
You never backed up one step, did you?
No,
You had your knife out and you were prepared to use it.
to defend myself.
At that point, there's nothing to defend yourself from, right?
I didn't know that.
If I understand your testimony today, now you're acknowledging that you did do something to Maddy Coen, which started off this fight, right?
Objection argumentative.
Overruled. You can answer the question.
Objection, please prove.
Yes.
In the at the sandbar, right?
Yes.
Sat in your tube? Did you sit down in your tube?
Yes.
Eric Williams from your group, realizing that people were hurt, left?
Objection, form, lack of foundation that Eric Williams.
Sustained.
Did you see Eric Williams leave your group?
No.
At some point, did you notice he wasn't with your group anymore?
I didn't do a head count, sir. Sorry.
Okay. Did anyone else from your tubes go to help with the folks on the river that were hurt?
No foundation.
Overruled. You can answer the question.
I don't remember. I wasn't paying attention to anybody in my group.
When you went back to your tube, you put your shirt back on, right?
I was cold. Yes.
And you put on your hat, right?
Yes.
And your sunglasses.
Yes.
Eventually, you saw police officers and emergency medical technicians show up on the river, right?
Yes.
Wading up the river, right?
Yes.
Trying to help people that had been injured. And
Objection, no foundation.
Overruled.
you saw that happen, right?
Yes.
You didn't approach anybody to say you were attacked, as far as law enforcement or EMTs or anything like that, right?
No, I just put myself. I was afraid to go in that area.
Even though there's police presence everywhere, you were afraid to walk over there and tell them, hey, this is what happened.
Yes, sir.
So you got in your tube and you floated down the river.
Not immediately. We waited there. We had people, from what I learned, not that I remember, that called 911, and yeah, I don't remember any of that stuff. So I don't remember.
So you remember waiting for Eric Williams to come back to join your group so you could leave?
I don't remember.
All right, do you remember saying, let's go? You yourself saying that?
Objection, asked, and the answer cumulative city.
Overruled. Overruled.
I don't remember.
Ernesto Torres, he's your best friend.
Yes.
You didn't tell him what happened as you were floating away?
I didn't talk to him. I don't remember talking to anybody. I don't even remember going down the river or up the river. I was just stunned. I don't remember anything.
You didn't tell Ernesto, I was afraid for my life and I did this?
No.
You never told Ernesto that I acted in self-defense?
I don't remember talking to anybody.
You didn't say I was afraid they were going to kill me, these folks?
Objection, no foundation, city doesn't.
Overruled.
I don't remember.
As you were leaving the area, you saw folks giving CPR to Isaac Schuman, right?
I didn't see that.
All right. Eventually, you made it down to Village Park where the exit was, right?
Eventually.
And there's some video of you relaxed in your tube, kind of playing in the water with your hand, right?
Objection as to form.
Sustained.
Do you remember seeing the video of you
I remember seeing the video.
relaxing in your tube before you got back to the end?
Objection as to form.
Sustained.
Did you see the video or not?
I said I did.
When you got to Village Park, your group exited the river, right?
Yes.
There was multiple police in the area, right?
Yes.
You saw a uniformed officer with his gun drawn, walking towards you, right?
Right.
You didn't approach that officer.
I was afraid of everybody at
You were
that
afraid
time.
you were afraid of the officer.
I was afraid of anything and everybody. I was afraid of anything. I couldn't. I was still in shock, so I was afraid of everything. Yes.
You didn't approach the officer and say, "They tried to kill me. I defended myself." Nothing like that, right?
I don't remember saying anything like that to anybody.
You walked right by him, right?
All that is a blur. I don't remember it.
Once you got further up the path, though, other officers were able to pick you out of your group, right?
Apparently, yes.
They stopped you, right, before you could leave the park.
I don't remember that.
You don't remember the police stopping you and detaining you in the park after this incident?
I remember being stopped, but I don't remember the details.
Sure. You were aware that the police had a picture of you from the river, right?
Okay.
Do you remember that?
I don't remember.
Do you remember the police had to take your hat and glasses off to make sure that it was you in the picture?
Nope. I was focused on one thing only. Somebody with a bat that I've seen in the woods and across that whatever bridge, the little bridge, Rainbow Bridge, whatever. I was focused on him. I was very afraid of that person.
Did you ever say to an officer, "Hey, there's a guy over there with a bat and that's concerning me. Can you do something about it?"
No.
You're put into a squad car, right?
Mm-hmm.
Said yes.
Yes.
Sheriff Knudsen came over to make sure you were comfortable, right?
I saw that in the video. Yes.
You don't remember talking to Sheriff Knudsen?
No.
You remember him asking you, well, if you don't remember, you don't remember. We're going to play that video and then I have some questions. The last person you stabbed was Dante Carlson, right?
Yes.
And this is in the sequence of events, everything else had happened, right?
Yes.
Objection as to form. I don't know what everything else.
Sustained.
All the other stabbings had already occurred, right? At the point that you stabbed Dante Carlson.
Yes.
He wasn't punching you at that point.
I was surrounded. People were coming at me. I just came up a couple of times, being punched in the head, punched in the mouth. I fell on river rocks. I was in pain. I was hurting.
Tony Carlson had broken up the fight between you and Dante never hit you again after that, did he?
Objection. That's
Sustained. Form. Please rephrase.
At the point that you stabbed Dante Carlson, he was not fighting with you, right?
Correct.
He had not punched you immediately before you decided to stab him.
Correct.
In fact, you took a couple steps toward him to stab him, didn't you?
I thought he was attacking me.
So at that point, you stabbed 5 people and you decided to leave the area. Is that true?
I walked away.
You walked up to Ernesto, right?
Yes.
You didn't say anything about being attacked, right?
I was in shock.
You said they took my knife, right? Tornesco?
I don't remember that, but that's what I said according to all the video and
Well, if Ernesto said that, that's what you
Yes.
said.
yeah.
You still got the knife on your person, right? Even though you just told them they took your knife, you still had it. Right?
No. When I reached the tubes,
No. When Ernesto came walking up and you walked up to him, you told him they took my knife. It's the first thing out of your mouth, right?
I don't remember that.
Okay. Instead of walking to your group, you walked up to the south side, south shore of the lake, of the river, right?
Yes.
And on the way, you washed off the knife in the river.
I don't remember that.
Well, you had blood on your hand and on the knife, right?
Yes.
When you left the area, right?
Yeah.
When you got back to your group, nobody saw any blood on your hands, or right?
Objection, foundation.
Sustained.
At some point, you rinsed your hand and the knife in the water, right?
I don't remember that. But, yeah.
What you do remember is throwing the knife up into the bushes on the south bank.
Right on the bank, yes.
And then you finally walked over to your group, right?
As I was walking, I threw it away, yes.
No. You walked out of your way to get to the south bank to get rid of it, and then walked back across the river to your group, right?
Objection, argumentative.
Overruled.
That's what you did, right?
Yes.
We're going to play the video taken by Larry and Davis, Judge. It's grainy, but it's of some value.
You have many more questions?
Yes.
Well, maybe this will be a good time to take a break. Let's recess and we'll come back at 2:50. All right, please be seated. All right, Mr. Miu, please retake the witness stand. You are still under oath. Mr. Smestad.
Mr. Miu, I want to ask you some more questions about the stabbing of Dante Carlson. Is it fair to say that you did not know that Larry and Davis was recording that part of it?
No.
And you've seen that video here in court?
Yeah.
You are the person in the dark shorts, correct? In that video?
It was not very clear, so I couldn't make out who was who.
Right. If there's a person wearing dark shorts with the same body type as you in the video, is it you?
Fair.
Hold on. Sustained.
Well, we're going to watch the video. We're going to watch it through at full speed. We're going to play part of it, but slower, but not the end part. We're ready. What's the timer? Yeah. This is at the very beginning. And Mr. Miu, do you see yourself in the left-hand side foreground wearing the dark shorts? Where the cursor's pointed?
I can't make out.
You don't know if that's you?
No.
Did anyone else on the river have the same body shape that you had at the time?
Objection, no foundation.
Sustained.
You've been in court since the beginning of the trial, right?
Correct.
You've seen all these people testify,
Yes.
the people that were all involved in the incident, right?
Yes.
At the time that you stabbed these folks, there wasn't anybody else in that area of the river that had the same body shape as you, correct?
Objection, no foundation.
Sustained. It's the same question.
You're aware that Dante Carlson's wearing shorts that are black on the bottom and light gray on top, right?
That's what I learned.
We're going to go through it slowly.
Judge, can we cross?
Yes.
Your Honor, this is the longer version of the video that's been referenced. It's 1 minute and 59 seconds.
House, when you're ready.
Camera recording started.
Still doing all right?
Yeah.
Okay.
What's going
Temperature's okay in here?
Yeah.
Okay.
Somebody, I hear somebody got stabbed. And I fit the description.
Yes, you do.
All right.
Yep. So we're working through that now. Did you see that fight on the river?
I heard about it.
You heard about it?
Yeah, and I seen people gather around it.
Okay. All right.
And I went over to talk to see if somebody saw anything, but that's about it.
Okay.
Our whole group was pretty interested in finding out what happened.
Okay. And that's your whole group over there?
Yeah.
Okay.
So I don't know. Okay, well,
Did you see anybody injured?
no.
You didn't see anybody injured? No. Did you see anybody fighting?
I heard people screaming at each other, yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
Screaming in anger or screaming in pain? Do you know?
Everybody's drunk, so I don't know. I can't tell the difference, but I would say, I don't know, just screaming. You know, calling each other names. That's, I've seen that all day. And we've all been drinking a lot. I'm sure they're drunk. I'm sure they're doing, I don't know, kids being kids.
Kids being kids. Where's your group from? Where did you drive from today?
I drove from Prior Lake.
From Prior Lake.
Yeah.
Okay.
Actually, I didn't drive with we came here.
Your wife and you? And you met the group here?
Yeah, but we know each other.
Okay. All right. As long as the temperature's good, I'll check back with you in a minute, okay? Thank you.
Boy.
You lied to Sheriff Knudsen, right?
I don't remember that conversation. But yeah.
Why does he keep lying? That's the one thing that really bugs me. Does that bug you? Well, maybe it doesn't. And like I said, if you watch the whole video and you hear the kids acting like asses, that's why it's so tough. I'm just going, did anybody have to really die for this? I don't know. It's okay. All I can say is kids, adults, don't drink. I don't know. Would that have diffused the situation? I don't know. Well, still don't know if the jury has come back because I'm filming this, but we'll just keep on.
Yes.
You told him that you heard there was a stabbing, right?
I don't remember any of this stuff.
You're fishing for information about what happened, right?
I don't know what you could say. I was fishing. I don't know.
You asked him some questions about what had happened, right?
Again, I don't remember this conversation.
But you were pretending that you didn't know what happened. Is that true?
No.
At the point point that you were talking to Sheriff Knudsen and saying these things, you didn't know there was a video of what happened on the river, did you?
I didn't know whether I was dead or alive at that point.
But you also didn't know that there was a video, right?
No.
When the sheriff asked you what had happened, one of your responses was it was kids being kids, right?
I don't remember any of that conversation.
You just heard yourself say it on the video, though.
So,
Objection, no foundation.
I'll move on. Prior to being taken to jail, you were transferred from that squad car that you were in to a different squad car, right? Remember that? You remember at some point Deputy Thomason telling you that you were under arrest for homicide and attempted homicide?
I don't remember any of that.
When you spoke with Lieutenant Hart, even though you'd been informed that you were being arrested for homicide, you pretended to know that, to not be aware that someone had died, right? Right? When you were talking to Lieutenant Hart, you...
Over here at the jail?
Yeah.
I don't remember any of that conversation.
You don't recall pretending to not be aware that someone had died.
Objection assumes a fact.
Sustained. When you're talking to Lieutenant Hart, that was about 4 hours after you had been arrested, right?
Yeah, that's what I learned.
And said you had time to put together a story, right?
No.
Overruled.
You had 4 hours to come up with a story about what happened on the river before you were interviewed by Lieutenant Hart, right?
No.
You didn't have that time.
I didn't put a story together.
Okay. So when you told her things like, 2 of these boys pulled knives on me, you're telling the truth?
No.
That was a story, right?
Correct.
And when you said that you somehow managed to grab one of the boys' arms and bend their wrist back and stab them with their own knife, that's a story you made up, right?
I told her what I remembered.
You remember doing that?
No, everything I told her is what I remembered at that time.
At the time you told her these things, you thought that you would grab someone's arm and stab them with their own knife?
As you can see, I was very confused.
Did you not testify earlier that you lied about the knife?
That I did.
And that nobody else had a knife on the river except for you?
That I lied about the knife.
So it's impossible then for you to have twisted someone's arm and stabbed them with their own knife, right?
I saw the video.
No, I'm asking what you said to Lieutenant Hart.
I don't remember the interview, but I saw the video. And
You're aware.
I know that it's not right. It's not true.
Not just a couple of little lies, but lie on top of lie to Lieutenant Hart, right?
Argumentative.
Sustained. Well, let's talk about some of the things you told her. You said, these boys took the goggles off my head and threw them down the river, right? You told her that?
If that's what the video recorded, yes.
Right? You told her that these boys tried to pull down your shorts, right?
That's what I saw in the video, but I don't remember the interview.
That's a detail you added for your benefit, right?
No.
You said these boys attacked you, right? You told her that multiple times, right?
I saw the video.
Did you say that or not? Yes or no?
I said that in the video. Yes.
And you knew that wasn't true, right?
So, in the video, I lied. I totally lied about the knife. I didn't remember a lot of details. I didn't remember of anything. I don't even remember the interview. I just looking at the video. It's I can look at it like anybody would look at it for the first time. I don't remember any of that.
You told Lieutenant Hart that these boys told you, "Don't run away from us." You remember saying that?
Objection, no foundation.
No.
In fact, it's just the opposite. They were telling you to go, right?
I don't remember.
You told her that a second boy had a knife, attacked you with the knife, and you took that from him, right?
That's what I saw in the video.
That's not true either, right? Right?
That's not true.
You said that when you walked back to your group, and this is talking to Lieutenant Hart, that Ernesto asked you if you had found the phone, right? Remember saying that to her?
I don't remember any of that conversation I had with her.
Yeah, that wasn't true either, right?
If this is all part of that interview, I don't remember anything,
Yeah.
so
That's what we're talking about. We're talking
Right.
about the interview with Lieutenant Hart.
then I don't remember the interview.
Okay, I still get to ask you questions about
Sure.
it. You were specifically asked, did you have a knife? Right? Do you remember being asked that?
I don't remember that, but I know I was.
Your answer to Lieutenant Hart was no, no, absolutely no. Right?
Right. Which I lied. I know I lied about the knife.
You said to her, why did they want to scare me with a knife? Right? Talking about the boys, I mean, the 17-year-olds. When none of them ever had a knife, right? Is that right?
Apparently not.
You said I grabbed it, meaning the knife, from him because he tried to poke me with it. Do you remember saying that?
Nope.
You said a woman hit you in the ear. Do you remember saying that?
Nope.
You know that's not true, right?
Objection, foundation.
Ruled.
You know that's not true as you sit here now, right?
Right.
You told the police and Lieutenant Hart, I think, that you thought it was two different groups of people fighting against each other, right?
I don't remember telling her that.
Right. You know, as you sit here today, that was completely made up, right?
Again, I don't remember any of that you're talking about right now. If it's
told-
about the interview.
You told Lieutenant Hart that you wanted to stay in the area and watch the police come and arrest these people for fighting, right? That's what you told Lieutenant Hart?
That's what's in the transcript. Yes.
When you were told that a person had died, your response was, is it because they fought each other? That's what you told her, right? That's how you responded?
If it's in the transcript. But I don't remember.
You never told Lieutenant Hart that you punched or pushed or did anything to Maddy Coen, right? You left that part out?
Is that what it's in there?
I'm asking if you ever told her that.
I don't remember.
You didn't mention that you had stabbed and severely injured another woman, Ryhley Mattison. You didn't mention that to Lieutenant Hart, right?
Objection, form.
Overruled.
You never mentioned that part.
I don't remember.
You didn't mention being strangled at any point, right?
If that's the transcript, then that we go by that. But I don't remember that interview.
And I think what you said earlier is that you were afraid you were going to die from being strangled, and that's why you stabbed Isaac Schuman in the heart, right? That was your testimony earlier? Didn't you say that today, this afternoon, here in court?
Yes.
That's not anything you mentioned to any police officer, right?
If I didn't mention it. I don't remember that.
That's not an important detail that you thought you might want to point out?
Objection argument.
Everything is every detail is important. We all know that. But I don't remember saying any of those things to Lieutenant Hart.
Because you didn't say them, right? That's why you don't remember.
Is what?
You didn't say those things to her. That's why you don't remember, correct?
I don't remember what I said or what I didn't say to her. I don't remember even having an interview with her.
So you can't remember anything about what you told her, but when Mr. Nelson's asking you questions, you can remember all these feelings you had at the time. Is that true?
Overruled.
You remember answering his questions about how you were feeling that day?
The feelings I had when I was attacked?
And when you were meeting with Lieutenant Hart?
Yes.
Okay. Excuse me. I'm going to stop because I could go on and on and on. It's going on too long, but I would highly recommend you go and check out. I haven't even seen it all, but I want to give you an idea of what's going on. Because this is a crazy, it's a mess. This is a mess, guys.
Murder case is now in the hands of the jury. Deliberations began at 12:30 after each side gave closing arguments this morning. KARE 11's Lou Ragoose joins us now live from St. Croix County with the latest. Lou?
Good evening to you. The jury went home at about 4:30 after about 4 hours of deliberation and after asking to rewatch the videos of the incident multiple times.
He's a skilled and prolific liar.
Prosecutors in their closing arguments in the Apple River stabbing murder case for Nicolae Miu told the jury Miu knew he didn't act in self-defense, proven by how he acted afterward.
I hear somebody got stabbed. And I fit the description.
Yes, you do. Did you see that fight on the river?
I heard about it.
You heard about it.
Yeah, and I seen people gather around it.
Did you see anybody injured?
No.
You didn't see anybody injured?
No.
Did you see anybody fighting?
I heard people screaming at each other, yes.
Nicolae knew this was not self-defense. All of his actions, from the minute the stabbings are done, from the second the stabbings are done, he knew it.
13 against 1.
But Miu's defense told the jury the 6 teens, including Isaac Schuman, who was killed, provoked Miu.
They got in his face. They screamed at him. They called him names. They swore at him. They put their hands on him.
Then, the defense says, the second group that confronted him made Miu fear for his life.
What does he think? What does Nick Miu believe is about to happen? You don't have to let somebody beat you before you respond.
Did Miu fear for his life, and were his actions justified? Those are the questions for the jury.
I submit to you the state has proven beyond a reasonable doubt this was not justified self-defense, and Nicolae knew it.
If you believe it's self-defense, he's not guilty. If you believe it's probably self-defense, he's not guilty. If you believe it's possibly self-defense, he's not guilty.
You both have given this jury a lot to think about.
And so the jury will be back at 8 a.m. to restart their deliberations. If they vote for not guilty on first-degree intentional homicide, they then will consider second-degree intentional homicide. And after that, they also could consider reckless homicide. So they have options, and that's what, in part, makes this such a complicated deliberation. Back to you.
A lot to discuss. All right.
I was hoping to get all this on the same day, but close enough. So after all this, the jury did reach a verdict yesterday afternoon for Nicolae Miu and the Apple River stabbing. And it took them 2 days. They wanted to rewatch that video, was the main thing they kept asking for. So they have reached a verdict. If y'all haven't seen it yet, it was yesterday afternoon they reached it, but I will go ahead and play it for you, even if you've seen it now.
Is a verdict, and the judge has apparently just taken the bench. So let's go to Wisconsin and together, and we'll see what the jury has decided. Everybody is standing. The jury is making their way into the courtroom. Here we go.
All right, we are back in session on the record in state of...
Oh, one other thing. You probably, if y'all haven't heard it, these are both of the defense attorneys, because I did say that I thought the defense overall did better than the prosecution. These two attorneys, I can't remember, one of them was a defense attorney for who he was a defense attorney for, but one of them was for Kyle Rittenhouse, and maybe you'll recognize both of them, but I believe here in the court TV they'll say whom they both represented. But here we go.
Wisconsin versus Nicolae Miu. The attorneys are present with Mr. Miu. 12 jurors are in the courtroom. Mr. Ashland, I understand you are the foreperson.
Right.
Did your jury reach a verdict?
Yeah.
Did you reach a verdict on each of the 6 counts?
Yes, we did.
Okay, please hand the verdict forms to the bailiff. Read as follows. As to count 1 of the information, Isaac Schuman, the jury finds Nicolae Miu guilty of first-degree reckless homicide as submitted. Question, did Mr. Miu commit the crime while using a dangerous weapon? Answer, yes. As to count 2 of the information, Alexander Martin, the jury finds Nicolae Miu guilty of first-degree recklessly endangering safety as submitted. Did Mr. Miu commit the crime while using a dangerous weapon? Answer, yes. As to count 3 of the information, Dante Carlson, the jury finds Nicolae Miu guilty of first-degree recklessly endangering safety as submitted. Did Mr. Miu commit the crime while using a dangerous weapon? Answer, yes. As to count 4 of the information, Anthony Carlson, the jury finds Nicolae Miu guilty of first-degree recklessly endangering safety as submitted. Did Mr. Miu commit the crime while using a dangerous weapon? Answer, yes. As to count 5 of the information, Ryhley Mattison, the jury finds Nicolae Miu guilty of first-degree recklessly endangering safety as submitted. Did Mr. Miu commit the crime while using a dangerous weapon? Answer, yes. As to count 6 of the information, Madison Coen, the jury finds Nicolae Miu guilty of battery as charged. Did Mr. Miu commit the crime while using a dangerous weapon? Answer, yes. Members of the jury, I do have to verify that this is in fact a unanimous verdict. So I'm going to ask each of you if I correctly read the verdict and if you agree with it. So when I call your name, if you agree with the verdict that I read, please answer by saying yes. If you disagree with the verdict, you can answer by saying no. Ms. Navarro, do you... Mr. Snell.
Okay, guilty, but not on the top charge.
The lesser included charge of first-degree reckless homicide and first-degree endangering of safety. That's for those who were stabbed but survived. There were 3 levels under first-degree intentional homicide. They either could have come back with second-degree intentional homicide. They didn't. They went with first-degree reckless homicide, which comes under that, and they also had the option of second-degree reckless homicide. They didn't go for that lowest of the lesser includeds, but really right in the middle.
Yeah, and this sentencing will be key, whether these are served concurrently or not. They're done polling the jury. Let's go back in and listen to the judge.
It's completed. You are free to read accounts about this trial. You are free to talk about this case with anyone. However, you do not have to discuss this case with anybody or answer any questions about this case other than from the court. So this includes the parties, the lawyers, the media, or anybody else. If you do decide to discuss this case with anyone, please treat any such discussion with a degree of solemnity, such that whatever you would say, you'd be willing to say in front of your fellow jurors or here in open court. It is in the public interest that there be the utmost freedom of debate in the jury room, and that jurors be permitted to express their views without fear of incurring the anger of any litigants or the public. For that reason, please respect the privacy of the views of your fellow jurors. If you do decide to speak, please only speak for yourselves and not for anybody else. On behalf of my colleagues, Judges Needham, Vlack, and Nordstrand, along with my courtroom staff, thank you for your participation in this important case. Court is now adjourned. Please take the jury out.
All around for the jury.
Well, this is one I was really mixed on. But I think, as I had stated earlier in this, that the fact that he went to the trouble of lying multiple times when he's being interviewed by police, and first saying that they had weapons or that he took it from them, weapons from them, and just lied about a lot of things and then just tried to hide it. I think that is what bugged me, because in this piece here, they're going to play the video, and you're going to see how the young boys, young teens, well, not young, yeah, young men were kind of taunting him. The one thing I will say is, like, he did kind of look like he ran towards them, but of course he has the shoe theory that his sandals were beat up, and so that the rocks of the river, and he kind of fell onto their tubes. So he did kind of come towards them first. It is kind of weird to me, but again, as I said earlier, I'm not a people person. I'm very much an introvert, so I wouldn't have gone in an area where people were. That's me, though. Most people maybe wouldn't care. But then having 15 against 1, and people coming, and they're all sloppy and drunk and all this kind of stuff, it just, I don't know. It's well, you'll see. I mean, it's sad though. I mean, you won't get to see his dog if his dog is still alive. The little dog in the picture. This is. I don't know. I don't even know. I just hope that the young people who survived, I hope they realize and learned an important lesson, not to be trying to gang up on anyone. Doesn't matter who they are. Maybe don't drink so much, or just try to keep yourself under control, everybody. And then him, I don't know, people who are, self-defense is always a tricky thing. I mean, he went a little far. I think he could have gotten out, but I understand being scared, but his expression did look, I can't say. I just can't even say, but y'all tell me below what you think based on it. And just remember, if you do comment, be nice to one another. It is okay to disagree. I am really torn between it all. I mean, I think seeing the one fellow, the AJ fellow who nearly lost his life, and he had that deep wound, that scar, that's pretty rough. That was pretty rough to me. But then, the others, like, just going on, and the young women getting in his face and all that kind of stuff. Like I said, it's really, really messed up. That's all I can say. But just remember, comment. It's okay to agree to disagree. I think that's what makes us all unique. But just remember to be nice to one another, because I've seen people in comments and people getting into fights with one another. We don't want to do that, which I don't think we will. I'm just saying, just because I would be very interested to see what you all thought. With me, I don't know. It's very hard. It's, and the families who lost the one fellow, even though he was acting like a jerk. But I mean, is it on the level of losing your life? I don't know. I don't think it's that, but it's not an easy one. It's not a cut and dry case, that's for sure. But anyhow, I will continue on.
Please be seated. Based on the unanimous verdict, I will enter convictions on each of the 6 counts. Bail is revoked. Mr. Miu will be held in custody pending sentencing. My staff will contact the attorneys and will schedule the sentencing date. I will order a pre-sentence investigation report, but we can do the scheduling at a later time. Is there anything else, Mr. Anderson?
No.
Mr. Schroffesy?
No, sir.
All right. Thank you, everyone. Court is adjourned.
If anybody on this side of the courtroom could please thank you.
Not much reaction there from the defendant in hearing what his fate is. Let's bring in for reaction to this verdict to discuss this in Los Angeles, California. Trial attorney Miguel Custodio is with us. Miguel, let us know what you think about this verdict. This jury coming in with really the middle ground of the lesser included charges after they deliberated over 2 days and wanted to watch that video of the incident over and over again.
Yeah, well, I think it really came down to somebody being accountable, and I think they really determined that he was the one who was the aggressor. As we can see from the video, he could have walked away. He wasn't cornered, and so I think the jury really made a good decision with this. Right? They didn't go with the first degree intentional. I think with the first degree reckless homicide, I think it's great.
Also, we may need to be getting to a break soon, but we are still going to continue to cover if there's anything else, if we hear from anyone else outside of that courthouse. We do have our Court TV teams there in Wisconsin. We're also continuing to cover that breaking news of O.J. Simpson being determined as dead at the age of 76.
Yeah, it'd be interesting to see if any of these jurors talk in Wisconsin, see what they thought of him on the stand. Our coverage continues. Stay with us.
Welcome back to Court TV Live. If you are just joining us, we've had breaking news out of St. Croix County, Wisconsin, where the defendant, Nicolae Miu, was found guilty in the case of the stabbings of 5 people on the Apple River. After 6 hours and 37 minutes of deliberation, they decided that he was guilty of the lesser included charge of first-degree reckless homicide and first-degree endangering safety.
Yeah, we are hoping for some reaction from the parties outside of the courthouse. Our team inside the courtroom says that Nicolae Miu's spouse is unconsolable, is how he portrayed it. Obviously, a very difficult time for this family. This is a guy that, you know, he's a Romanian, speaks 5 languages. He's an engineer, no criminal record coming into this, and now he is been remanded into custody. And a lot of our viewers have been split on this. Even the reaction now we're getting from the verdict, some saying the Wisconsin jury got it right, others saying Cheesehead dropped the ball. They believe that that this was self-defense, some do, and some believe that he was reckless and the adult that should have left these situations. So fascinating case. And to your point earlier, they really did go right down the middle.
Split the baby when it came to the way these charges go down. What they were looking at on their verdict form would have been the top count, the one the prosecutor said they should come back guilty with, which would have been first-degree intentional homicide. They determined he's not guilty of being intentional in the way that he acted, that he didn't have this malice aforethought. He wasn't, and it also goes to imperfect self-defense. If he thought he was defending himself, but it wasn't reasonable, that's when you get to these lesser includeds. They could have come back with second-degree murder. They didn't. They came back with the next down, which was first-degree reckless homicide. So that he acted in a way that didn't give great care to human life, but that he wasn't acting intentionally.
The trial attorney, Miguel Custodio, is in Los Angeles. He is watching along with this. And this, for jurors, this They wanted to see that video. He testified. They took what they did from him, but during deliberations, the only questions they had were, can we see the video again? Can we see the video again? They wanted more and more views of this on video. Does that tell you that they sort of took his testimony with a grain of salt, given that he lied to law enforcement?
I think so. And at the end of the day, we know that testimony was all over the place in this case by the witnesses, and the video really is what just, I think, dictated this verdict. And I think they got it right. I think it was fair, but he did lose credibility, the defendant did, by lying to the police subsequent to the incident. And so I think the video was key. You can tell that the jury did not have their mind made up if they wanted to see the video footage again, and I think they came to a fair conclusion.
Yeah, there likely could have been some jurors who were holdouts who said not guilty, but what they came back with was an agreement in the middle. Who knows? Maybe we'll hear from this jury. Let's go back, though, to some of those moments when this defendant took the stand. We were expecting, because it was a self-defense case, that he would take the stand. And here's what he told the jury.
What did you think was going to happen to you in that moment?
The whole time I felt like I was going to die, so basically I feared for my life.
Were you trying to kill somebody?
Absolutely not.
What were you trying to do?
I was just trying to defend myself.
You had said that your fear level was rising.
Mm-hmm.
You had waved to your friends, right? That was the look on your face at the time, correct?
Mm-hmm.
You're smiling.
I'm confused.
You pulled out your knife at this point with these two girls standing in front of you, right?
Yes.
And as you're doing that, you're smiling, right?
That's not a smile.
Well, let's take a look at the video.
I'm overwhelmed and annoyed.
That was him on the stand. He was represented by two very seasoned attorneys, and both of them are now at the podium reacting to the verdict.
Your thoughts? Surprised, respectfully disappointed. I understand, it's a huge task that the jury just undertook. We obviously, disagree. So with deep sadness.
How's Nicolae doing? What was his reaction to how everything went down?
He's, I thought, showed appropriate emotion throughout. He's had a deep sadness, and as he said on the initial tape to the police, he said, he was sorry. I know when this case first started and there was talks about what we could do to help alleviate some of the stress and pain that other people were feeling. We did what we could in that moment, and I think that was a large part because Nick wanted to take the lead on that, and so he continues to feel those feelings. He's sad, obviously disappointed in the result, and contemplating his future life.
Did he tell you anything?
I told us lots of things.
Can you share?
Shared what I wanted.
Okay.
Mr. Nelson, what these charges were added on at the end, that's something the public, that aren't used to trials may not completely understand. Can you touch on that, as well as what kind of penalties he could be facing now?
Yeah, so he was originally charged with intentional crimes. By deduction, it seems like he was found, they couldn't agree on the intentional crimes, so they moved on to the reckless, and that's what he was charged with. Reckless crimes are a lesser included offense of the intentional crimes. There's still substantial life-changing penalties that he faces.
What was your thoughts coming into today when you walked in the courthouse? Did you feel good about the case?
We felt like we had a good case. We felt like we had a good defense. We felt like we put on a good defense. But in many ways, self-defense is a community standard, and it's very dependent upon which group of 12 people within the community you ask. I understand and appreciate that. We had a lot of complex feelings going in. We felt confident, but we're also aware that it's not math. It's not black and white. It's a community standard.
Were you expecting a verdict today when you walked in? It's something further.
No real expectations, whatever. The juries are unpredictable, so. All right. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, disappointed defense team there. Aaron Nelson doing the talking. You remember him from the Ezra McCandless trial. Corey Chervasi represented Kyle Rittenhouse. Both of these individuals have a tremendous amount of trial experience, and we saw that play out in this case. They
did.
Very
they
vigorous.
really presented this to the jury in a way where they really could, as defense attorneys, go back and take this not necessarily as a win, not to call it that, but they made this jury think. They did not accept right flat out what the prosecution said was the theory of this case. They took a long time in going over their deliberation, and they had a lot of questions. They wanted to see things again, and they came back with a lesser included. So, in a sense, this is a win for the defense, but hopefully also gives closure and some sense of justice to the family and to those survivors. Let's squeeze in a break, and we'll get you back for more coverage of that trial.
Court TV Live on a busy day. The death of O.J. Simpson, of course, the breaking news earlier. The breaking news at this hour, a verdict in the case against Nicolae Miu. 6 hours, 37 minutes of deliberations. We watched the defense team come outside the courthouse and comment. We're waiting to see if prosecutors will also make any comments after this. You wonder how they're feeling as well. The defense team seemed disappointed for sure by this verdict, but it was a risk. When you put your client on the stand, let's face it, it can go one way or another, and one would argue he had a problem because he lied to investigators repeatedly afterwards, pretending, I didn't know about a stabbing, and he tried to get out of it, and that really, I can only imagine how that went over with jurors. You could argue, Julia, that you take that out of the equation,
and we could have had a different outcome in this case. It's possible. We wouldn't know unless we heard from jurors to tell us exactly what they were thinking, but that, for many of our viewers, seemed to be a turning point. They all, through the prosecution's case, which normally is very anti-defendant, they were for the defendant, and then when they heard that part about him lying to police, trying to say that I heard there was a stabbing and I fit the description, they no longer felt like he deserved their support, which is...
And he continued to lie, even though they ID'd him.
Right, even in the interrogation, and things seemed to be...
He had the knife, and I grabbed his arm, and then on the stand, he didn't really go into why he lied.
Did not go into that, and his attorneys just said that you need to focus on what happened. Even if he lied after, it doesn't mean he didn't fear for his life in that moment, which is smart. But jurors also want to get some kind of explanation, even if it's that he has had negative interactions with police or was hoping to get away with it. I think some honesty there may have helped him. But let's bring in Miguel Custodio, who is standing by, trial attorney out in Los Angeles, California. Let's talk about client control, Miguel. Just when these defense attorneys have to make the decision to put the client on the stand, they know there are problems, and you have to own those problems very early. Are there any things that you think they could have done differently in owning those bad facts?
They could have asked him, like you were saying, why did he lie subsequent to the incident? And whatever that explanation would have been, at least it would have been something for the jury to chew on. But when you don't even mention that, it just confirms to the jury that this person is covering stuff up and they don't want to talk about that. You have to talk about everything. Defendants don't go on the stand often. And when they do, it's because you need to. It's because it's a Hail Mary type of thing. And so if you're going to do that, you might as well just lay it all on the table. And so I definitely think they needed to address that.
Yeah, you got to go all in. You do, because and you can't try to make yourself look good. at all because you're already in that spot.
I would even
doesn't
say
work.
that the only reason he should have taken the stand was to address that, because
Exactly.
the video
Addresses
helped him.
everything
It
else,
addressed
yes.
everything else. The jury seemed to be very focused on it, and every time it played, it seemed to help the defense because it showed you in the middle of it how a reasonable person may have been scared in that situation, but he needed to be on the stand to mitigate that part of it.
The lying part. Let's watch that video that the jury really focused their deliberations on. We know that because of their questions and their requests to watch it again and again.
What are you talking about? What the hell are you talking Get away from us! What? What's going on with your homie? He's on camera. Guys, let's go. He's on 4K. Yo, the new iPhone got that good quality. What do you say? Yeah, what the hell? Who is this? Yes. From the culture. Who is that? From the culture. Who is that? Who the hell is this? Bro, doesn't matter. He's looking for little girl. He said he was looking for little girl. You're looking for little girl? Yeah. That's exactly what he said. We're on this out. I even have that part on camera. Can I? Some young ass kid. What the hell is this guy's problem, bro? We're trying to have fun. He's gonna close you. He's gonna claim you. We don't want this on
That video is so hard to watch, but very important evidence in this case that held Nicolae Miu's life in the hands of this jury. Miguel, I want to ask you though, when we're watching this, that taunting turned to terror there at the end. But do you think there could have been a situation if Nicolae Miu had not reacted the way that he did, that these young people could have faced charges?
Really, I think this herd mentality that was being displayed by these young men was just something that obviously in retrospect it's something that they regret, but they were definitely putting him on edge. Now whether that rises to the level of taking out a knife and start punching a female and start stabbing people, obviously that's where I think the jury drew the line. But definitely there was some responsibility for starting this, for egging that man by the teenagers.
There is a verdict.
Oops, sorry. So there it is. That video is horrific. These guys think they're just, they're too young to understand, like, things can happen in a minute or a few minutes. I think the video was just a little over 3 minutes, and one of their friends lost their life. A few of them almost lost their lives, and it's horrible. They really did gang up on him, but I still don't get why he came over that way. I mean, I guess he said he thought he was looking for a phone. They had a phone that his friend had dropped. I don't get all that. And I don't know. I'm really at a loss for words, but I don't know. I felt it was important to share this because it's such well, all cases are unusual to me as far as I'm concerned, but this was just like, none of it had to happen. Maybe a lot of them didn't. Just doing one little thing could change things. So It's really a sad thing. It's really sad, but you know, I just wanted to share it with you all. And I hope you learned something from this, because I sure did. Makes you paranoid to do anything. That's why I don't really like to be around a lot of people. But anyhow, thank you all so much for watching. Oh, well, one other thing I meant to say. If you go to Lawyer You Know, he has a wonderful channel, and he's a lawyer, and he's really good about breaking things down, because I would have, you know, if you have questions about why would they do this, why would you do that, and he's very, what am I trying to say? He presents both sides to you. He's very, you know, he can be very neutral about it, and, you know, bring it to you easier than somebody like me, who doesn't have experience in law, just a lot of opinions and feelings and all that good stuff. But yeah, check out Lawyer You Know, because he goes over a lot of these different parts and explains it in a way that makes it a little bit easier to understand. Okay, guys, don't forget, I love you. Be kind to one another. Be kind to you, and I'll see you the next time.